Welcome! I'm standing here in the kitchen of my 2021 Kezia Escape E17 hatch, and in this video I'm going to be installing a paper towel holder under the kitchen cabinet. Now this isn't a comprehensive video, I've actually already started, but if you're looking to do something similar to your hatch, this might help you out a little bit. So this is the paper towel holder I purchased. Now if you find this video helpful and you want to purchase one of these, I'll put a link to it in the description. If you use that link, it helps me out a little bit and doesn't cost you anything extra. And this is the Kamenstein paper towel holder. So this can be mounted different orientations. You could mount it like this, but the microwave would be in the way. And we contemplated, I say we, my wife and I, contemplated where to put this. If we put it over here, we're gonna block outlets, we have a light and a window here, and we came to the conclusion that somewhere over here would be the best place. We were a little apprehensive because the stove is down here, but we don't use the stove that often. And there's two things, you could have fire or steam getting to the paper towels, but we have an easy solution there, is we'll just take the paper towels off and throw them in a cupboard or something if we're using the cooktop. Although it'll be back quite a ways, so I don't think it's going to be a big fire risk any more than anything else on the camper would be. So this came with some screws, and I could just mark a location and screw it in here. But if you know anything about the way RVs are made, this is super thin plywood. So this is a similar piece. This is about 1/8 of an inch thick. So I wanted to put a block of wood in here. So let me tell you how I got to that point. So this is the floor of the cabinet. It normally sits down here, and then there will be a panel here. And it looks like this. It had one screw in it, and then it had, I think, 3 staples on this side. So I unscrewed that, and then I just pulled it, and these staples popped out, and it kind of splintered the back a little bit. But I'll just put a screw or two in to hold this side in. And then there was also this partition up there, and that was screwed in kind of right here next to the microwave. So when you take that partition out, it gives you access to all this wiring and such. But I just grabbed this, and I pulled, and there were some staples along the front here, and there were, looks like only 2 in the back. There were 3 in the front, but the rest of this had nothing holding it down. So it just popped right out. Yeah, it was not hard to remove at all. Let me take a step back though. I did remove the microwave. So there are 4 screws here. You just take those screws out, and I had enough room where I could bring it down and set it on the cooktop and unplug it from here. So the cord was long enough. You may need 2 people to do this. So I measured this here, and it was right around 1 inch. So I went through my scrap wood and I found this, and this was just a hair too thick. So I actually planed it down. It's not super even, but I think it's going to work for the purposes of what I'm doing. But if you don't have the ability to plane wood down, you could probably take a piece of 3/4 inch sheet goods and 1/4 inch sheet goods. So plywood, actually MDF and masonite 1/4 inch hardboard would work well because those tend to be imperial dimensions. So if you put those together, you'll probably get close to 1 inch. A lot of plywood and such is metric, so it's a little bit thinner. But I wanted some kind of block here, and I initially thought I was going to glue it in, but then it'd be hard to take apart later. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount the paper towel holder with the screws that came with it through this wood into the block, and then I'll put the panel down and I'll screw in from the top into here, and that will stiffen the whole thing up and help keep the screws from popping out. So that should be pretty sturdy. Now I did measure these screws, and they look like they're not going to be too long. So you can see there's a little bit of a gap here, but it still has to go through this panel and this panel. So I'm guessing it'll go through here to here and poke into there. And those are the ones that will come up from the bottom. And then of course, I'll screw some in from the top, so it'll be sandwiched from both directions. Needless to say, you don't want to put long screws in from the top that would poke through under the cabinet. Now, if these poked through just a little bit up, it'd mostly be hidden, so it wouldn't be a huge deal. I do need to pay attention to where the feet on the microwave are. I don't want to have the microwave sitting on a screw head, although I could recess it, but I'm going to try and avoid that. So I'm going to get this mounted up, and I'll show it before I put this piece on. Okay, so I did some measuring. I'm going to put the first hole 3 1/4 off of this and 4 off of this. So as I was laying it out, I want to make sure I can take the roll off and not hit the window. Okay, so I drilled the hole and it came through right here. So if I take my block and put it up here, these screws are kind of keeping it from butting up against this. So I'm actually going to put it here, and I'll mark that, and I'll just take a drill bit and I'll drill in there a little bit and there, because I'd really like to butt this up against this. And I think I might even throw some screws in this way. I'm not sure. I'll come back and tell you what I decided. Now I did only drill one of the holes. I'll get it mounted up with 1 screw, and then I can tilt it to the right angle and mark for the second screw. Okay, so I have that 1 screw in. Actually have a little bit too tight. And now I can pivot this back and forth with my ruler up here, and I'll line it up when I get to 4 inches. And actually I can measure probably a little more accurately from the back wall to the edge of the paper towel holder. So I butted this up against this corner, but this is not square. I think my board's pretty square. So I could press it up against this or this. This seems a little bit sturdier than this. This is just some paneling, so I pressed it up against here. Now it's possible I could have had this where it's just floating out here too, and that probably would have been fine. But I'm going to try and sink a trim screw in here, maybe even over here too, and that'll make this really, really sturdy. Okay, so I started drilling the hole. I moved it out of the way, finished drilling the hole. I put it back in place, put the screw in, and I checked my measurements before I tightened it down completely. So that's on there pretty good. You can see the paneling is moving, but this is way sturdier than it would be if it was just in the paneling. It would rip out in no time. Now when you drill through this, you're probably going to get some breakout and stuff. You want to make sure you wipe that off or scrape it off so you don't have a bump there. Now you can see this is moving quite a bit. This should be a little stronger once I get this paneling in. So I'm going to find some screws. As I said, I want to put a finish screw in this direction and maybe this direction. I don't know, we'll see. Another option would be pocket holes. If you have a pocket hole jig, you could pocket hole into these. Okay, so I have some of these GRK finished trim screws. They're 2 inches. I kind of laid it out and marked it with a pencil and drilled some angled holes here. Now to drill a hole at an angle, what I do is I start drilling straight in and then I kind of bring it at an angle and then continue. So I'm using this compact drill to do that. If you have different screws or techniques, that's fine too. I'm just showing what I did. So before we go further, let's test a roll. So you can see how it fits on here. Now one of the limiting factors was the distance between the roll and the top here. So I wanted this gap to be approximately the same as this gap here. So if I had a larger roll, I could still slide it on. But I think that's going to be nice there. So now I need to finish up here. So I'll have to find out where that foot is. And when I put this panel down, I'll put a couple screws in here to support that. So I marked on the side and the back where my brace was, and I marked the lines out, and I drilled holes here about 1 inch deep. And I'm going to use these number 10 by 1 inch screws. You want to try not to drill through to the bottom of the underside of the cabinet. Okay, so I have those screws in. It's very solid right there. Now I could put screws around the corner, but it seems very, very sturdy right now. So you can see this is kind of wiggling a little bit, but this is rock solid up here. Now one thing I want to mention about this paper towel holder is it has a ratcheting mechanism on it, so it doesn't freewheel. I didn't want a freewheeling one here because it's above a stove, and for multiple reasons. It's easier to tear off with this too. So now I need to put the microwave back. I'll put the partition back here, and I'll put this panel back in. And I could put screws here. I don't know, we'll see. Gravity is holding this down, so it's not a huge issue. But that's installing a paper towel holder in my 2021 KZ Escape E17 hatch. If you're moderately handy, it's not too difficult to do, but I do highly recommend doing it at least somewhat like this, where you put a block in to give it some support, because screwing right into that paneling is not going to be very strong. Another option is you could mount a board to this with, say, 4 screws, and then maybe mount the paper towel holder to it, but even then, it's not going to be super strong. You could screw in from the side here to it. That could stiffen it up a little bit. But I really like the look of this. It looks nice here, and our brace is hidden there. So that's all I'm going to cover in this video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you liked this video, please click like. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate if you could do that. And thanks for watching. Until next time, goodbye.